President, I start off by reading from Article 3, Section 1 of the United States Constitution. It says, "The judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish." It's pretty clear to me. It says judicial power is vested in our courts, not in the Congress. The Constitution gives the Senate a role in the appointment of judges, and we're supposed to provide advice and consent, not direction. But once a judge is seated on the bench, his or her decisions are not subject to our approval. The Founding Fathers, in their brilliance, set it up that way on purpose. They wanted to make sure that court decisions would be based on legal grounds, not political grounds. But today, there is an orchestrated effort to smear the reputation of the judiciary, especially federal judges. And the effort is being waged by Republicans in Congress as a prelude to an attempt to change the rules for confirming judicial appointments. In order to justify the nuclear option, they're trying to paint judges as activists and use terms like they're out of control. In reality, it's the leadership, Mr. President, of this Congress that's out of control and endangering the future of a fair court system. In this chamber on Monday, one of our colleagues said, "Americans are becoming frustrated by the rulings of the judges." So be it. That's all right. You can be frustrated as much as you want. But then accuse the judges of making, quote, raw political or ideological decisions. That was in the quote from our colleague's statement. He went on to say, "I wonder whether there may be some connection between the perception in some quarters on some occasion where judges are making political decisions yet are unaccountable to the public, that it builds up and builds up and builds up to the point where, listen to this, where some people engage in violence." These comments made by a United States Senator, the remarks are almost unbelievable, and yet they echo the words last week of the House Majority Leader. Speaking of the judges in the Schiavo case, the House Majority Leader said, "The time will come for men responsible for this to answer for their behavior." What does that imply? These are inflammatory words. They ignore the fact that our Founding Fathers wanted judges to be insulated from political pressure, and their words that could easily incite violence against judges. On Sunday past, a columnist in the House Majority Leader's hometown newspaper, the Houston Chronicle, wrote, and I quote here, "It is time for him to stop sputtering ill-tempered threats," says that newspaper, "not only at the judiciary but also at the U.S. Constitution, which he repeatedly has sworn, taken the oath, I add, to uphold." Mr. President, there were two matters that made things worse. Two recent episodes the senator from Massachusetts made reference, involving violence against judges. Chicago, a man fatally shot the husband and the mother of a federal judge who had ruled against him in a medical malpractice suit. In Atlanta last month, a man broke away from a deputy, killed 4 people, including the judge presiding over his rape trial. Is that what these people see? Is that what our colleagues saw? Is that what the House Majority Leader saw? An opportunity to take revenge on judges who make decisions that they disagree with. What are we? Some third world nations where if you don't like it, you kill the person who did it? Were these judges who suffered terribly because of these official duties, their official duties, were they activists? Were they out of control? The message being sent out to the American people by the other side of the aisle is not only irresponsible, but downright dangerous to our nation's judges. Like the nuclear option, the goal here is to have judges make political decisions rather than legal. They're trying to intimidate sitting judges, and they're trying to change Senate rules to get bad judges on the bench. Well, I vow to fight this nuclear option, as well as these irresponsible, threatening statements. I do that for my family, for American families across this country. In my view, the true measure of democracy is how it dispenses justice. In this country, any attempt to intimidate judges not only threatens our courts, but our fundamental democracy as well. And, Mr. President, I note that a letter was sent out most recently by the Majority Leader, distinguished Majority Leader, and in which he invites colleagues. It's dated May 31st in the year 2005, and it says, get a fresh perspective on our nation. This is the Majority Leader stationery. Get a fresh perspective on our nation's religious heritage with a special tour of the U.S. Capitol. Dear colleague, I'm writing to invite you and your family to a private tour of the U.S. Capitol building with Wall Builders President David Barton on Monday, April 11, 2005. The walking tour will commence at my office. He identifies it in the time. And he describes David Barton, founder and president of Wall Builders, a national pro-family organization which distributes historical, legal, and statistical information and helps citizens become active in their local schools and communities. He is a historian for his detailed research into the religious heritage of our nation. Among some of the interesting facts covered by Mr. Barton, that the U.S. Capitol served as a church building for decades. The first English-language Bible in America was printed and endorsed by the United States Congress. The original Supreme Court, composed of numerous signers of the Constitution, began their sessions with ministers coming in and praying over the court, the jury, and their deliberation. Majority Leader goes on to say, you will also learn inspiring stories behind the faces, paintings, and statues in the U.S. Capitol, and view original documents from George Washington and others which are depicted in the artwork. Now, I read something of Mr. Barton's biography. Mr. Barton, it's believed, intends to prove that the separation of church and state is a myth, and America's founders intended for the United States to be a Christian nation. Is that what we want to hear now? Does that mean that those of us who are not Christian are excluded, whether it be Muslims or Jews or some other religion? To suggest at this point, and the Majority Leader is the one who's making this suggestion. And, Mr. President, I submit this letter for inclusion in the record, ask unanimous consent that it be done.
Is there any objection to the letter being included in the record?
Now,
without objection, if so done.
Mr. Barton appears to be angling for, in this report, a spot on the national stage. He's touring the nation again, this time with financial support from the Republican National Committee as part of what is described as a larger get-out-the-vote effort. As he tours the country, Barton leads pastors in sessions examining the role Christianity played in America's founding and puts forth his usual shaky thesis. Barton doesn't stop there, it says. Not so subtle is his message, that Americans' Christian heritage is at risk, and only voting Republican can save it. I want those who hear me across America, pay attention, that Christian heritage is at a risk. That means that all the outsiders, all of those who approach God differently, but are people who believe in a supreme being, people who behave according to normal behavior with their neighbors and their friends. No, this is being put forward as an attempt, not too subtle attempt, to make sure that people understand that America is a Christian neighborhood, is a Christian country, forgive me, a Christian country. And therefore, we ought to take the time that the Majority Leader offers us, members of the United States Senate, for a chance to learn more about how invalid is the separation between church and state. I hope that the American public sees this plan for as spurious an attempt as it is. And I ask my colleagues if they want to go to a Christian-only spokesman who will tell us about how insignificant the separation between church and state is. The question is fundamental to the Constitution. Are we a country of laws? If we are, then we must respect the law, and we must hold the law free from criticism or from threats. From threats. How does it feel when you look at that family of the judge in Chicago, her husband, her mother, killed by a murderer because he disagreed with the decision that was made? How do we feel about seeing this guy break loose in Atlanta and killing the judge and a deputy? Senator Kennedy just mentioned the fact that there was a $12 million request for security for judges, for courtrooms. I don't blame them. This isn't some Latin American third world country where if a judge makes a decision, he better run for his life, nor is it Iraq, where those who are upholding the law get killed because people disagree with them. And we shouldn't stand for this. And I ask the majority leader, withdraw that invitation to salute this man who says that this should be a Christian-only country. How can he dare defile the interest, the development that resulted from this Constitution, this brilliant Constitution that was written those many years ago? No, my friends, we're entering a dangerous period, in my view.
It's expired.
With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.